What's up, you guys? I kind of took a little time here, a little extra time since it's the end of the season. And obviously, I did also want to figure out how I was going to word my recap for the Las Vegas finale. But 2025 Supercross, Motocross, and the playoffs are now done. And all we have left is the donations. And that's all for the 2025 season specifically. And obviously, it's now time for the off season for the bench racers like myself. So let's get into this. But before I do that, guys, remember, subscribe if you think that I'm worth listening to, or if you just want to see some more of my games, or if you think that I make a good point every now and then. Hey, kudos to you. So let's get into this. I'm going to do 2 videos this time. I'm going to come back with the 450 video probably early tomorrow for the donations. So I'm going to talk about the 250 class today. Let's get into this. Jo Shimoda wins title. Haiden Deegan crashed, injured, and penalized. Ryder D was very lucky in Moto 1. Now, I'm going to get the elephant out of the room here. I know I may have taken a little bit of heat on social media, and quite frankly, I don't even care because I stand by what I said about Haiden Deegan landing on Ryder Difrancesco, and that wasn't Ryder D's fault at all by any means. But was it Deegan's fault? So. But still, I probably would have put that crash under review if I'm the AMA. Of course, obviously, nobody could really do anything. I know I was kind of told out a lot, but quite frankly, to be honest, if you land on a rider like that, I'm sorry, but that is a black mark in my book that is not going to go away anytime soon. Let me tell you, okay? Because for Deegan to land on Ryder D's head, that could have very well been a career ender for Ryder Difrancesco. And, you know, you hear horror stories about guys landing on each other, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. I've been kind of thinking back on some incidents kind of similar. And one incident kind of popped in my head when James Stewart flagrantly took out Jason Thomas at Houston 2011. And that ended Thomas's main event. James Stewart continued on, finished 15th, but he got up like nothing happened. And to be frank, was that a racing incident back then? I didn't think so. And what really turned my stomach back then was how many idiots on social media were actually blaming Jason Thomas for the crash. And for some people today to put any blame on Ryder Difrancesco is completely screwed up. Because, really, how would you feel if somebody like Haiden Deegan landed on you and just got up like nothing happened? But still, I'm sure that Haiden and Ryder D had a talk after the race, and I'm sure they kind of patched things up, and I'm sure that Ryder D had no hard feelings because he got out of that, fortunately, with just a concussion. But he was very lucky, too, because like I said, that could have been a career ender for him. Or he could have been forced into a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And you hear horror stories about, you know, things like that. But as far as Deegan is concerned, I'm not a Deegan supporter and I'm not a Deegan hater. But really, he's the guy to beat, and I hope somebody steps up and gives him a challenge. And it looked like Jo Shimoda happened to be that guy. But Jo Shimoda, wowee, talk about coming back from a lackluster Supercross season where he got hit by a pit board after winning Anaheim 1. And to see him win the title the way he did, he obviously got lucky with Levi Kitchen running it in on Haiden Deegan at St. Louis. But obviously, Jo Shimoda put himself in a good position. And props to him for expecting Deegan to take some shots at him. But frankly, if I'm Deegan, I'd have been okay. I might have done the same thing, but I probably wouldn't have taken as many shots as he did. And after hearing Adam Cianciarulo say that Deegan should have been black flagged, I'm kind of in between on that because, I expect a little aggressive racing. I'm all for it because, really, it's a contact sport. And I've seen people do bumper cars back then. And especially going back to the days of David Bailey and Rick Johnson and some other guys like Bob Hanna and Kent Howerton and maybe even Mickey Diamond too. Of course, I heard little things about that because that was before my time. But still, for Jo to be able to counter the shots that Haiden Deegan took on him, props to him. And to see Haiden Deegan kind of crash his way out of the Donations, now it's confirmed that Haiden is not going to race the Donations, had his collarbone plated. But I don't disagree with those people who say play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And unfortunately, that's what Haiden Deegan did. But I don't blame him for trying. But I think the way that he did it was pretty much all wrong after that. But still, props to Shimoda for being able to counterattack on those, like I said earlier. But I do think that there's a part of Haiden Deegan that should have told him to consider that the Donations is coming up and Team USA's got a great chance to win, having not done so since 2022. But still, I don't blame Deegan for trying, but I do think he might have taken it a little too far. Just like the 17 Vegas finale, I thought Eli Tomac took the shots that he took on Dungey a little too far. But then again, it's for a title, so I don't expect anything less. But for Eli Tomac, that was another case of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And Ryan Dungey ended up winning the championship. Jason Anderson ended up winning the individual race. But at the same time, I still remember that race really well because of what Anderson did to Chad Reed just before the finish line jump. Because Chad Reed was clearly faster than all of those guys. But to see him not win that race all because of Jason Anderson's antics, I don't know. I probably would have given Anderson a penalty then, but I don't know. I've seen people do worse and not get penalized. But still, that's in the past. And just like the Vegas finale, that's in the past as well. But the guy I didn't put on my banner here, the guy who ended up winning the individual race in the 250 class, Seth Hammaker. Holy smokes. I have not seen much from this guy ever since he lost that 250 East Supercross title. And make no mistake, I'm calling Seth Hammaker as a regional champion regardless of what division he rides in 2026. Now, the reason why I say that is because Seth really came into his own. And after having a lot of lackluster seasons, even to a point where he was forced to take a break early in the season because of chronic fatigue, because supposedly Jeannie Carmichael and the others had run Seth's body down so much to a point where he had to take a break so early in the season. But now it looks like Seth is really coming into his own, and it looks to me like he's going to be a heavy title favorite for 2026 and beyond. Let's just hope that injuries don't take a toll on him. And that's all I'm going to say about Seth Hammaker. But still, I'm a supporter of Seth Hammaker. I hope he wins a championship. I think he can win a championship too. But obviously he won't have to deal with RJ Hampshire and maybe Haiden Deegan, permitting Deegan decides to go 450 full time in 26, or if he decides to run the East Coast and go for all titles, which I think is what Deegan should really do. Okay? But obviously, I'm not the one calling the shots on Haiden Deegan's life. Obviously, I have no control and I have no say in that. But I'm just saying what I feel he should do. Is he going to is he going to do the same thing is he going to do what I'm suggesting? Probably not, but, you never know. I mean, I just hope that Haiden Deegan, obviously he will have to ride the big class next year, but there is a thing called too much too soon, and I like the fact that Deegan took the time to perfect his skill and win a championship. But if I'm Deegan right now, I am at least testing the 450 on the opposite division. If he wants to run the number one on the West Coast, go for it. If he wants to run the East Coast and win all the titles, go for it. Because the East Championship is the only thing he has yet to get in the 250 class. And if I'm Deegan right now, that's what I'm going for. Win all the titles in the 250 class, then move up. You got plenty of time, and that's what Jet Lawrence did. Because although the SMX title came out just after Jet jumped up to the 450, still, I don't blame Jet Lawrence for going for every single title, and I'm not going to blame Deegan if he does the same thing. And I think he should do the same thing. But obviously, it's up to him. So we'll see what happens there. And that's where I'll leave it. But before I go, I also want to give a shout out to Ty Masterpool and Tom Vial, who won the second moto. Tom Vial, looks like that's his last race in the States. And I think that's a real injustice that they're doing, not even considering Vial for a 450 spot. But if Vial wants to, he could do a Christoph Purcell and come back to the States in a couple of years after one of the factory teams has an opening. But I do hope that some of the satellite teams keep Tom Vial on the Christmas list for 2026. It doesn't look likely, but still. I hope Tom Vial is on somebody's Christmas list. And if I were a team manager or anybody else out there, I'd keep Tom Vial on my Christmas list. But again, just saying. Second guy I've given a shout out to, Ty Masterpool. Holy smokes. I really hope that Pro Circuit gives him another shot, because really, when Ty Masterpool had to be switched over to the West Division and arguably past the 11th hour, that kind of ruined his year altogether. And I really hope that Mitch Payton has a heart of gold and gives Ty another shot. And me being a firm believer of second chances, he did the same thing to Shea Bentley after Bentley won the 2000 125 West title. So I hope that that Mitch does the same thing with Ty Masterpool, and hopefully whatever coast he's designated to run will stay that way. And that's where I'll leave that for sure, as far as Ty Masterpool is concerned. But anyway, guys, that's all for today. And subscribe. I'll see you all for my 450 video. I'll post that later tomorrow.